Thank you very much. So we'll try to do something which is quite quick about digital transformation, microservices, multi-cloud. It's more of thinking, more of a thoughts on the experience that we have in CloudBees and how to remove the anxiety when we see companies doing this digital transformation. Very first thing, very quick, and don't laugh when you read that. Software is eating the world. I'm using it, brief introduction of myself. I'm using it because I had the chance to work with Mark Andreessen. So I like that quote. And even though everybody uses that quote, I've done companies like Serena Software, HP, Opsware, CAS Software, CloudBees right now, just to say that I have, usually on LinkedIn, you see things like 20 plus years. It's just to say many more than 20 years in the software industry. So I've seen a lot of things, always around DevOps, even though it was not called DevOps when I started to talk and to think about that. But the problem, more or less, is always the same. Since the very beginning, building and releasing software is complicated. You see here some kind of spaghetti stuff that you see in a lot of presentations. Multi-tools, multi-processes, and multi-teams, where there is some disconnect on that. So if we want to dig a little bit more on the disconnect means that we have scale, complexity. If we want to deal with some companies, we are dealing with the biggest banks of the world in CloudBees. So we know what multiple revenue generating commercial companies mean, and we find usually hundreds of processes, hundreds even of tools. Okay, we're not talking only about Jenkins, Git, Terraform, Ansible, and Jira. We are talking about hundreds of tools. Some of them are internal, some of them are very old. They have been reworked with some bespoke changes and so on. And the problem is that there is a legacy on that. There is a legacy, and the companies do not want to remove these tools, to let these tools behind, even though they are working, they are moving towards microservices, clouds, nice architecture, nice infrastructures that should allow to save money, time, but at the end of the day, that add to the core, add to the complexity. So we don't have the visibility we want, and we introduce some risk more than anything else. Some of the companies have tried to replace all that core by a giant all-in-one system, but it's completely an anti-pattern. If we think about DevOps, if we think about software development, before the DevOps principle were here, it's completely an anti-pattern. So if we want to sum up in 2 slides, in a perfect world, we have this. We have Jira, Jenkins, Selenium, Quality Center, maybe, and we are building something that we will push to Kubernetes. In the real world, in the reality, it's not this. We have multi-clouds, we have multiple tool chain, multiple companies also that were bought. I am the example in CloudBees. I mean, CloudBees has bought last year Electric Cloud and Rollout. If you are interested in the movements in the software world, so this is the reality, and this is what we are trying, what we want to manage in the real world. So for that, to build a realistic view, we are talking about software delivery. Software delivery is something that the Gartner, Forrester, all the analysts are building at that very moment, 2020. It used to be CI, it used to be then CD, then release orchestration, and now they are moving towards this notion of software delivery, how to deliver the software, whatever the technology, but obviously it applies especially to the new, the modern infrastructure, so microservices, Kubernetes, clouds, just to name, just to fire some words like this. So software delivery, this is what we are talking about. What we like to do is to position software delivery. Where are we? Okay, in the DevOps world, in the life cycle of building and delivering applications, we are in the middle of Dev and Ops, roughly from a developer commit until the monitoring and operation into production. And software delivery manages or wants to manage both the applications, what will be deployed. So applications means everything that you can design, build, and push to production, and also the relying infrastructure. So the target machines, clusters, clouds that we will want to do. A small definition of the Gartner. The definition they are currently elaborating, the combination of deployment automation, so what the technical aspect of how to deploy a container, a microservice on a Kubernetes cluster, for example, the pipeline and environment management, what will be the different stages of my pipeline, how shall I release the applications, how I will manage what happens in the different environments, and at the end, release orchestration, so how to orchestrate all that spaghetti plate that we were seeing at the very beginning, and to orchestrate everything that happens. The benefits, I leave it on the recording. It's quite obvious, better quality. We go faster and we have a better high-level view, so governance, because we want to scale the release activities. And this is exactly what we see. If I want to pause a little bit before talking about the three ingredients, this is exactly we see in the customer, the banks, but also other types of companies. But banks are a very good use case for us because they are currently, I mean, at least 70% of the banks in the world have done the same choices in terms of processes, in terms of technologies. They are moving towards microservices. It's complex because where they have the flexibility of APIs and developing with microservices, they lose that flexibility when it comes to manage the releases, more frequent, manage the dependencies between these microservices. At the end of the day, it's very difficult to do that. So what we want to do is, in several colors on my slide, is decouple the deployment automation and the environment management from the pipeline and the release, which means that we have a pipeline that defines the different activities that we want to do in the different stages, and the actions of deploying the microservices on which target I want to deploy the microservices are decoupled from the definition of the pipeline, which means that if I want to have a multi-cloud, if I have different clouds in my different stages, it's not a problem. It's just at the level of deployment automation. I will choose a different target environment, but my microservices will be the same and my pipeline will be the same, and so on. So what does it mean? Decouple deployment automation, environment management, and the pipeline. It means be able to model what happens in terms of building the microservices. I will show you in 1 minute, what it means more in details. But so have a model of the application, have a model of the environment. So what is the target? We will deploy this towards that, knowing that my Kubernetes cluster, for example, here could be located on AWS or Google. It's not necessarily my problem when I'm developing and when I'm designing my microservice or my container. Okay. On the other hand, what is decoupled is the pipeline itself. So the different activities. The first one being building, for example, with Jenkins or with whatever we need to build. Each of my stages has a deploy phase where I will deploy my 1, 2, 100, 5,000 microservices into the target that I have defined. So what does it mean if I show you in the real life, I would say how it works. Let's go for something which I find very useful when it comes to digital transformation and how to manage these microservices. The first thing I find useful is to have this discovery. Okay, discovery on Kubernetes, typically discovery on OpenShift, discovery that allows me to query the real-time cluster and to get what is running on that cluster. So the discovery can allow me to onboard what is existing, but not only. Once I have my microservice, very simple, this one, but once I have my microservice, I'm more used to work like this. So this is the code for my the definition of my microservice. It's a container. I have the different characteristics of my container. I have the flexibility, since it's code, I can do whatever I want. So if I want to change the name, for example, I can change the name from its store backend until store Manuel, for example. So I will do that. Okay. So it should have, okay, store Manuel. I just validate that. And now on my microservices, I have a store Manuel that does the same thing. So I can, from one microservice, initialize other microservices depending on my needs. Maybe more interesting thing, the notion of reaching the templatization of my microservices. Here I have a microservice API component that uses a quite complex process to build and to deploy. So just having a look at the process to build, I have to make it much bigger. Okay, so I'm building with Jenkins. The Jenkins pipeline I'm using here is doing also a sonar analysis. So I get the sonar results, and I will be able to store everything in my software delivery repository, where I know exactly for each version of my code, for each version of my built container, what were the results of Sonar, what were the results of Selenium, of the different tests that I'm doing on the different stages. So it comes to, if I go back briefly to the presentation, it means that I am able to have things like this, production report what is installed on a specific environment. My microservices, all the information that regards my microservice, knowing that it can be management information, the one that I use to generate the next version of my microservice, but also some live information. I will show you that in just 1 minute. The one that is also, important, yes, the different comparisons between the environments, development, QA, production, where I see all the management information, what were my Sonar results for the microservices, what are the Selenium that I'm using in QA, what is the health in production. And what is the health in production comes from the fact, and I just finish on that, comes from the fact that according to my connection to the clusters and the representation I have in my repository, so I will stop it. I can have both here on the left-hand side a representation of what is on my repository. So I have a logical environment made of applications and microservices, but I also have a real-time connection to my Kubernetes cluster that gives me all the information. So I have the namespaces, the pods, the services, the containers, until the container, which is here, with all the information. This is live information, so I can mix on that way, live information with the model I have on my software delivery repository. And this is that way that I'm able to ramp up in terms of number of microservices. Managing one microservice or 10 or 5,000, as I was saying, is not more complex because I have that ability to put them all together in the same pipeline. Going back, so I left also on that presentation, I believe that the presentation will be made available, things about the value stream management. And at the end of the day, software delivery is becoming a new business function. So software delivery automation and software delivery management. So what you do and the way you do it, with all the ability to manage the pipeline, define some rules, some thresholds, all the business rules that you can apply to your software delivery. Just finishing on one slide about CloudBees, SDA and SDN. Some of you may know that CloudBees is the company that has been built upon Jenkins. We are now far, we've done a nice journey until we started with Jenkins. CloudBees CI, CloudBees CD, CloudBees feature flag, it may ring a bell. And just because my marketing wanted that slide at the very end, if you want to hear a little bit more about that DevOps world, you will see that everywhere on LinkedIn, everywhere on the web, a virtual event that will take place in September. Don't hesitate either to message me directly here or to register on the website. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't go that far in the time.
No, spot on.